We all are connected to internet in some kind of way, or better to speak, it's applications. We either build applications or use it. Well, then how does actually that process takes place? Means how does a typical web application works? Means how does the each part is divided and how does that communication part works? Well, uh, typical web application is basically divided into three parts: front end, back end, and the database. Front end, the visible part; back end, the invisible part; and database, the crucial part. Why? But before talking about that, let's talk about what is internet, because this is the most crucial part of any web application or any. This is the most crucial concept a web developer should know. Why? Let's see. What is internet? Generally, in books we used to study network of networks, network of networks. But how? This definition is not clear. It doesn't give us any visualization. Network of networks. What is a network? What is a network? Network is a way of connecting some computers or some connecting some computing devices to communicate with each other. Well, I want to some data to my PC from my phone. How I can send it? By connecting, by making it a network. It is nothing but connecting to computers or some computers. Well, we need two computers for building a network. That's obvious. So this is a way of connecting computers. Networking is a way of connecting computers. Now, what is network of networks? The networks are connected. Then how does the network is formed? Well, let's give an example. Let's consider this world as a Cartesian plane. Not clear? Graph paper. Better example. The graph paper that we use in our school days to build some graphs, to build statistics plots. Well, let's consider it. The plane that we form, that the axis, xy axis and y axis, that is Cartesian plane. Let's consider our whole world as a Cartesian plane. Obviously in 3D. And the networks are specific points, a very specific points that we plot, scattered plot, and some random points. I don't know the name. I actually forget the names. That specific points. Let's consider it as scattered points. These are the networks. Better to speak, these are the routers. Internet is nothing, but it's just like a big graph. Big graph, where each points, where each nodes, that the points that we say that scattered plots points in graph theory call it nodes, and the line joining two nodes are known as edges. Well, internet is nothing but a big application of graph theory, where each nodes are the routers. Routers, yes, the routers that we use in our home, but some advanced form, so with some advanced application, that routers. Then we can say that our home routers, that Wi-Fi routers that we use, that we generally call as Wi-Fi, that provide us hotspot, are also part of the network. Indirectly. Why? When we say that that internet, it is actually given to us by our internet service providers, Airtel, Jio, Alliance, something like that. They are having their routers. We are, let's consider ourselves as a small chunk, very low, the grassroots level, very subdivisions. Let's consider humans, means that the general public that who use internet for their daily use, they are connected. So suppose 1,000 people are using Airtel, 1,000 of them are connected to Airtel. That Airtel router, the main router that the Airtel use, Airtel is an ISP, internet service provider. They have their router. They actually provide us the data. They actually connect us to the internet. The other networks, well, in the definition we know that network of networks and the graph theory. Well, one node needs to be connected to another node, forming a bigger graph, forming a graph. That is done by that ISP routers. They led us to connect to the internet, the bigger network, the connection of networks. They help us to connect. Then now it will be a question. We all know about IP address. We all for working in a network, not internet, even in a network, even in a personal area network. like if we connect two devices by Bluetooth or some other connections, very small, very small network. We need IP addresses. IP address is the most obvious thing in a network. Why? We need something to identify a device now. We need something to identify a device. If we know about, we all know about OSL layer. In a OSL layer, we have also another physical address that is known as MAC address. That is a different part. But the most the most crucial part that is used, that is IP address, to identify us in a network, in a bigger network. Not in the physical, means not in that local one, in the bigger one. We need something to identify our router. Who provide us that IP address? Our router, our ISP routers provide us. Our ISP riders provide us that provide us that IP address. That means that devices, means suppose 4 devices are connected to an IP address, to an out router, are having that same IP address. Yes, all that devices that are connected to a same router are having the same IP address. That is a global IP address. Now individually we will have some router uses a concept known as uses a devices known as NAT, or network access translator. Network access translator means, suppose in a very casual way, I will go to then that how that communication takes place. Suppose I want to visit google.com. I searched in the web browser google.com. Then the data is sent to the router. That request server model, request response model. Request is sent to the router. Router send it to the internet or the other networks. Means a flow is coming. When it got the response, it send us. Then how the device is getting identified? This is done by the NAT, network access translator. Means who is actually making that request, which device is actually making the request. Well, that is a part of an invert. It is a brief but a clearing concept. Okay. Then how does that communication takes place? We need something now to communicate. We need some method to communicate with each other, either by some languages or by some symbols. How does this take place? Well, the age-old method. I'm talking about the request server model. It will be client server or request response. Let's call this client server architecture. Or request response model. Request response model means client will make a request to the server. If server will take that, process that, and send it to the client as a response. Well, how does that communication takes place? Here comes the TCP/IP model. TCP/IP protocols, HTTP, hypertext transfer protocols. What is that hypertext transfer protocol actually do? We all say HTTP. Very cool to say HTTP. We made a HTTP request. What is that? Ask any backend developer what do you actually do. They will just definitely say, I just process that HTTP request, nothing else. If it's get, I process get, post. That are the methods of HTTP request. A backend developer will say, I just process a beginner level backend developer will say, I just process HTTP request, nothing else. What is the work of a front-end developer? Main front-end developer, I'm not talking about the designers. That front-end developers process request, send request. Request response cycle. This is known as request response cycle. And the main thing about that, this is stateless. What do you mean by stateless? That's a definite question. What do you mean by that word stateless? Well, in this once request response, no data is stored. No data about the request. This is a client, this is a server. Client is making a request, but server is not storing any information about that client. Not a single information. Means what is the IP address, what is the time, nothing information is getting stored. That is HTTP. That is the beauty of HTTP. But we recently visited suppose I recently visited facebook.com. I logged in with my password. How I am stayed connected? This is here the confusion comes. It is done by that cookie storage or caching or JWT. Let's talk in detail about that, how that flow actually come, that front end, back end, database. General, there are three things. In general, there are three things. I'm not, if we talk about the total process of building an application, then there are many parts: development, then production, then staging, then production, testing, many things, many things. Actually testing will be obviously done before production. That is a definite thing. But when we consider an application, it is divided into three parts: front end, back end, and database. Any application, front end can be CUI or GUI. But generally we say that front end are graphical user interface. That is a controversy, can be, but it can be any interface. Front end means providing an interface to communicate. Providing an interface to communicate. Any interface. So that, suppose I build a system, I build an excellent algorithm. Well, by talking about that algorithm, I remind that I actually forgot to tell one thing. How does that router, how does our, in the internet, how does our, well, I will tell it later on. What is the front end? Providing interfaces means a way of interacting with my PC, with my system. I built an excellent algorithm. Excellent, too much excellent. For that I should be given a Nobel Prize. Joke. Keep it as a joke. Well, front end means providing an interface. Any kind of interface. Front, CUI, GUI, anything. Backend, and why front end is the more visible part? Well, front end, in a browser, front end works. In a request, when we first make an request to a website, we get all our front end pages. For this time, I'm not going into what is HTML, what is CSS, what is JS. At this time, the thing got evolved. We are not following that age-old method. Modernity, here the modernity comes. We are not following that exact everything. If we talk of what is the actual reality happening at this moment in web development, well, there are a lot of theories: single page applications, server side rendered applications, server side generated applications, request response cycle, many things. Well, today modernity means take a bunch of everything, pull out a byte from everything, pull out a part of everything and combine it together. Pull out some part from request server model, pull out some part from single page application, pull out some part of Ajax, pull out some part of server side rendered, pull out some part of server side generated, use CD, and many things. Here that comes that spice. Why that building that application becomes so fun? That is also a different. We are taught that this is done by this is done, but actually when we start programming now, when we actually start coding that application, we'll automatically understand that we are not following any strict method. What is the best approach we are taking? What is the best approach that needed to be taken? We are taking. Here comes the system designing part also. That how that the system is getting programmed. Well, how that front end works. How does that pages got rendered in my browser? That is a different thing. My browser is a different thing. How does that getting rendered? It is getting rendered by that JS engine. If we are using Google Chrome, then it is V8 engine. V8 engine means that it is a type of engine. We can for sake tell it as, obviously not for sake, it is actually it is like a compiler or an interpreter for JavaScript. We have CSS engine, and the HTML nothing but provide the structure. Then our front end done. We have lot of technologies in front end, but all of them are a part of CSS or JavaScript. They are the frameworks of CSS and JavaScript. Front end is nothing. Only three tech stack. Tech stack comprises of only three things: HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And your work is done in front end. And why it is visible? Since the code is getting rendered in the Chrome browser, we can easily see it. The user can easily see it, what is happening in the web browser. What is happening to him? What is happening in the JavaScript part? The user can see it. The client can see it. Because we have provided him all the things. All the debuggers, all the... that Chrome developers or any browser developers or the browser team provided clients a set of tools to actually observe what is happening in the to them. That is why how much we can apply security, how much we know we apply security. We apply everything, we apply cryptography, we have this, we have that. Apply it in JavaScript. Apply it in JavaScript, browser side JavaScript, not server side. Apply it in JavaScript. The user will be knowing it. The user will be knowing it. Definitely. That's where we are recommended that code your most business logic in the server side application, because that is not visible. Now what is backend or server side? Backend means where the actual logic lies. In front end we can't write our business logic. We can't write our business, the reason I've told. In backend we used to use a programming language, any set of tools, some set of tools, and write the business logic. Front end send us some data. How does that data send? Request server model, make a HTTP request to the server. It will get the information, process it, and apply that logic. The most secure part. Suppose I have an algorithm, too much useful algorithm. What I will do? I will give it. I will write it using the JavaScript in the browser that get shipped. That always get shipped to the client side. No, I will write it in the backend. I will make it as a backend. Take the data from the front end, process it, apply some business logic, and my work is done. Invisible part. No one used to know. Simple. And what is a database? Well, sometimes it is required. In a modern day, it is required that if you are going for a company hiring, they will definitely ask you for a database. You are a front-end engineer or you are a back-end engineer. You should be knowing a database. You should be know how to store a data in database. Backend process the information. Let's talk some more deep dive between that. What is the relation between backend and the backend and the database? Well, backend is the abstraction layer. Backend is the abstraction layer of the database. How do you mean by abstraction layer? Think it like a what I can say. Think it like a metal cover. Think it like a metal cover where the user doesn't have the direct access, where no one has having the direct access. We sanitize the data coming from the front end, we process them, and then store in the database. Database meaning is simple. I think all of us know it. Well, that's the thing. It's a simple. The workflow is simple. Front end send the data to the back end. Back end in turn responds it with some data. Work is done. That's simple. But what is actual web? Means if I go in deep dive, according to me, what is web development? Well, web development means opening a service at a particular location on the internet and provide it to all the users. In more deep dive, if I go, web development is a way of providing world a service at a particular room of a location or a particular coordinate of a location. Why I am telling this? Well, we have for hosting, for using anything in a network, we need a IP address. What is domain? Domain is nothing but an alias of an IP address. We need an IP address. We obviously need an IP address to do anything in the web, to do anything in the network, not on the web, to do anything in the network. We need IP address. Now, why room of a particular location? Well, what do you mean by port? Port is a place in the IP address or in the location where we are availing the service. For example, HTTP uses by default 80 port. Means we need some space now to run our service. We need some space in the system. What do you mean by that? Cloud hosting. We should not think that cloud hosting means we are sharing the data in the cloud. Rather, we are sharing data under the ocean. Internet wires means that cables are running below the ocean, connecting the different networks. That is a thing. Means we need a system to run anything. Cloud service means running hours services on a different by renting some other system. So we need a part, we need a specific space. Well, we can't take all our storage for running a single applications. We are not that Vella or Rella, what we say. We can't run a single application on a on the whole system. So we get divided into parts. We are available some ports to us. What are ports? Ports are the locations of the service in a particular location. For example, we have a room, we have a house, and the house is divided into rooms. Simple. Then how does that IP address get determined in a network? That is a crucial question. Well, this is done by the routers. The famous why I have told that internet is a graph theory, is nothing but a graph theory. Why internet is a graph theory? Because many things you can explore from it. Graph data structure. How does we get identified in a network? Using G-Ketra's algorithm. Which is a famous graph algorithm for finding the shortest distance. We send our request to a router. It will find the closest approach or the closest path or the shortest path to reaching a destination. For example, Google Maps that we use, what algorithm it is using? G-Ketra's algorithm, nothing else. That's we can also say it is a beneficial of that. We have lot of data structure that we can use algorithms. That's how that web works. It's simple. Now in between that we have lots and lots of concepts.